But I will say that Danganronpa is important because quite literally the point of the game is ultimate despair going up against ultimate hope. And that in and of itself is the gospel. Welcome to Twig, your weekly Geekly family-friendly news show that tackles everything from Annapurna's mass exodus to Flappy Bird in 2024 with some games in between. I am Nerd Pastor Nate. I am really the pastor here of Checkpoint Church, and we are really a church online designed with nerds, geeks, and gamers in mind. If you are listening on the podcast version of the show, be sure to give us a good review. Click that like button if you're over on YouTube, or come and listen live on Twitch every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern here on twitch.tv/Checkpoint Church. Folks, as always, the folks in the chat have already got the question of the day, but we are going to start our show with what you've been watching, playing, and reading recently, and I'm going to let our guests introduce themselves and also tell us what they've been up to.
Hello, I am the one of many names, but most commonly here on Checkpoint, I go by T-Bone. I recently found out that on Tubi is free with ads, and it has all of classic Doctor Who on it, and it is glorious. So I have been watching the first Doctor, OG classic Doctor Who, specifically the Sensorite story arc. And I have been playing Spyro the Dragon. In case anybody was curious, dragons cannot swim, and they drown very quickly, even when you are trying to jump. I also have been playing board games on Board Game Arena, and I have been really into the mobile game Cat CEO. I've invested way too much time into this game. It got to the point that I was waiting for the next update because I couldn't upgrade some of my buildings any further. And I was excited when they added in an update. So I don't have a problem, though, because I haven't spent real money on it.
You're good. You're golden.
Exactly.
You're golden.
If you know me, you will know this next sentence is extremely unusual for me. Today was the first time I opened up my Libby app in 2 full days.
Oh, wow.
It was opening it up to see what I have been reading lately. I just haven't lately, and that is highly unusual. But most recently, Bookshops and Bone Dust, White Dragon in the Dragon Riders of Pern series, as well as Shadow Kiss in Vampire Academy, and the Fellowship of Puzzle Makers. Is a mystery and actually has like crossword puzzles and anagrams in it that like you can do yourself.
Oh, Trombone, you shouldn't have told me that. You shouldn't have told me that, because now I'm on board. I wasn't. At first I was like, hey, that sounds interesting, but I probably don't have time to fit that in. But then you were like, oh, but also you can solve them. Well, that's a hop, skip, and a jump away from House of Leaves for me. So any kind of game, any kind of book that I can play, I'm all about. Very good. I have been
I told you that I thought you'd like it.
Yeah. I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. Ergodic is what the type of literature is referred to as, and it's books that are intentionally hard to read. And not necessarily hard as in like challenging, hard as in they have layers between them. So you have to like actually do things to read them.
Oh, you mean challenging to read because they're dense?
Yeah, that's a different kind of challenging to read, to say the least. Yeah, that one is dense in a completely different way. Yeah. Whew. That was an interesting read for sure.
Conference, to be honest.
Yeah. I am watching my 1001 movies, continuing my journey through that. I made it through 2 movies this week so far. So we have watched Stagecoach, which was one of the first ever John Wayne, if not the first John Wayne, cowboy picture, as my dad calls them. It's also known for a couple of things. First off, it had a pretty intense action, like car chase, except it was a wagon chase, right? A stagecoach chase, but it actually like looked pretty good for a movie of that era. And it's also the first time that I think, this is a random, IMDb fact, but it was the first time they ever did the like circle pan in on a character. And so at the very beginning, they're like introducing John Wayne as Kid Ringo or whatever. And they like do the little circle zoom, like Looney Tunes style on his face. So apparently the first time that ever happened. neat enough. I also watched my first ever Marx Brothers movie, so I've never seen anything by Groucho Marx. I know Groucho Marx just by like name and reference, but I watched Duck Soup, which I'm not gonna lie to you, the first like hour, I was out. I was like, this is not funny. This is like old school humor that is completely over my head. And I was like, this is a dead generation of humor. And then the last like 20 minutes were so irreverent and full of these like random cutaway scenes that it got me. It absolutely got me. I was legitimately like cackling. It reminded me of like, I could see the evolution of what now has become like really dry British humor. So you could feel the like Tom Scott that's been inspired by Monty Python, that's been inspired by Groucho Marx. You could really start to feel it towards the end, but the beginning was a rough watch. I'm also watching a new Let's Play on Xenogears. So this is a game that I've had on my backlog for a while. Started playing it on an emulator and realized that this is one that I was going to need to watch. So I found a Let's Play that was pretty compelling, and it is by, I think Bunny Tails maybe is her name. I know it's got Bunny in there at some point, but watching her Let's Play and super enjoying it so far, already about 10 to 15 hours into it. And I like this game. I think it's great so far. I understand why it's so controversial, but I'm digging it. Playing, I finished Fields of Mystria, as in like literally I did everything that you can do in early access and loved every single minute of it. Still continuing to do some of my chores in Zenless Zone Zero, although I am backing off on some of that. I am continuing our playthrough of Midnight Ramen some. I finally got to catch up on that for Button Bash Brigade here at Checkpoint. And then today I started playing Plucky Squire because it officially became available on the PlayStation Plus program. So I am now playing it for free. I started playing it with Nora. She absolutely adores it. It's the perfect game to play with her watching, and I am super enjoying it so far. It's adorable and fun in all the right ways. And I am reading Heaven and Earth Grocery Store for Checkpoint, and then also continuing my binge. I'm almost done with Hunter x Hunter. I have almost caught up with Hunter x Hunter. I think I'm on chapter 380, and I did not start that long ago. I have really gone through that series. And granted, I'd read some of it before, but probably the past, like, I don't know, 30 or 40 chapters I had never read before. And so it's so good. It's such a good manga.
I'm like, wow, for that one.
Yeah. It's been quite a lot. Let's look through the chat here, see if anybody else is watching, playing, or reading anything right now. It looks like DB has shared watching Supernatural, playing Minecraft, and reading The Wild Robot. Very nice. Well, do let us know, folks, as you are watching, playing, and reading things. We'd love to hear about them, share with them and with you. And if you want to let us know over in our Discord server, that's always a great place where we can talk about and geek out about all of these things. But with that, we're going to get into some of our trending headlines for tonight. The very first one, Annapurna Interactive's entire gaming team, including its president, Nathan Gary, has resigned following a failed negotiation to spin off the gaming division as a separate company. The talks between Gary and Annapurna founder, Megan Ellison, fell through, prompting Gary and about 30 others, including division co-heads Deborah Mars and Nathan Vella, to step down. In response, Annapurna has brought on former Epic Games executive Hector Sanchez to lead the gaming segment and maintain existing contracts. Ellison has reassured partners that the company remains committed to its ongoing projects and plans to expand its presence in the interactive space despite these significant internal changes. Annapurna Interactive is also known for publishing acclaimed indie games like Stray and Sayonara Wild Hearts, though it has faced past criticism for allegedly supporting toxic work environments at partner studios. This has been an interesting one to follow. It definitely came out of nowhere. I was not expecting this even a little bit. Like, in a world of layoffs, a mass exodus resignation from one of the leading indie devs really was not something that I had on my bingo card, as they say. So I think there's a lot in this one that we will never know about. Like, this feels like a internal decision that is fueled by internal drama, purchasing stuff, behind the scenes stories, inner conflict, maybe related to the toxic work environment stuff, maybe dealing with just the bureaucracy of the C-suite. But whatever it is, this is way above my pay grade and is just a real shock to the system for me. Any thoughts on this one, Trombone?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we're like finally mentioning the toxic work environments at different studios. I think it's something that is unfortunately common, and by addressing it, hopefully we can move away from that and the backlash that these studios are receiving from them. But like you said, this is something that was completely out of left field. It's not often that you have almost the entire company, including the president, be like, nope, we're out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like in stark contrast right now, we have a lot of the stuff going on at Xbox, which we're not going to be covering tonight. But Xbox, continues to have these mass layoffs that don't really affect the gaming division at all. It's all HR and other aspects of these companies. And so it's intriguing to see, like, this is the core gaming unit. Like, I understand that they're saying what they have to say to keep their stakeholders happy, but this is going to be a hit to Annapurna as a company and as a game dev studio. Like, they have a lot of games that they put out. We highlighted just a few of them there, but whenever I think of like narrative heavy indie games, I think of Annapurna. They are one of the companies that comes to mind. Like, I would think of Annapurna, especially given their deep ties to film. Like, I think of them as being kind of the story studio, almost kind of not necessarily in like an actual play style, but they're like Telltale now. Like, they're like what took the place of Telltale, of telling good stories and bold stories and really doing that ludonarrative thing. So this is intriguing. I'll be very curious to see what they do. All of these innovative people and minds, like, are they going to go start a new studio? Are we going to start hearing about something else? Are we going to have something not dissimilar from what happened with the Among Us devs and how they're now like spinning off and becoming their own publishers and trying to do new things? Maybe this will be a whole new era of indie gaming and storytelling gaming from whatever's going on with this team that has departed. That would be best case scenario for me, is that Annapurna is able to keep up with their existing contracts without messing up anybody, and then that the people that did leave do some exciting and wonderful things. That's the dream from this scenario, but weird one overall.
We can always dream, is the cynic in me will say. We can always dream.
Always dream, and I will be the optimist to your cynic and do the best that I can there. More weird news, unexpected.
Balance me out.
Yes, exactly. More weird and unexpected news here from that I think nobody had on their bingo card either. We got a double bingo card here.
Yeah, so Flappy Bird is back in the news again. Let us know in the chat if you got caught by the Flappy Bird craze, or if you somehow escaped it, and to what level. But the creator of Flappy Bird, Dong Nugent, has publicly distanced himself from the recent revival of the game, stating he has no involvement and did not sell the rights to it. He originally pulled Flappy Bird from app stores in 2014 due to the overwhelming impact on his personal life. I remember when this happened because I was a senior in high school, and I had many friends that were upset. But now, a group calling itself the Flappy Bird Foundation, BF, is relaunching the game, claiming to have acquired the trademark from Game Tech Holdings LLC after Nugent's trademark was declared abandoned by the USPTO. The group, led by Michael Roberts, has raised concerns due to its connections with NFTs and cryptocurrency, which Nugent explicitly disapproves of. Nugent made his stance clear in a rare tweet stating, quote, "I did not sell anything," end quote, and quote, "I also don't support crypto," end quote. The new Flappy Bird is set to launch by the end of October, with planned future releases for iOS and Android in 2025. What was your thought on this one?
Yeah, so I did not get into the Flappy Bird craze. I was far too deep into the world of Temple Run and games that I would consider to be much more compelling. I understood what Flappy Bird was doing, and I guess I sort of got some of the addiction, but to me, it was little more than like an arcade game. Like, it was little more than like what I would go and put a quarter in and play until I lost and try to set a new score. It didn't do it for me. It didn't get the attention for me. But I do remember also whenever they closed their doors and whenever this game dev was like, hey, this isn't what I wanted out of my life. And no, I'm done. Like I'm closing it up. I'm closing up shop. I'm not interested. And I remember being I was cynical about that. I thought that was a really weird call. Like, I guess, sure, okay, why not? You can stop doing this thing that's making you tons and tons of money. Maybe money is not what's most important to you. I understand that, but it still felt like a weird out of left field situation all around. And it always kind of felt to me like maybe there was more than meets the eye of like, maybe like this isn't really a thing. Like Flappy Bird is not really like trademarkable. Like maybe it's not a thing that he ever felt like he was able to truly like pin down. And so I remember there were like a bazillion clones that were made of this, and they all, you know what, fizzled. Nobody cared anymore. I can remember even Downloadable Youth Ministry made one where you could control it with your voice. And so it was a great youth game to have the youth try and control it. I know that it's even still to this day, there you'll do like a Godot game dev tutorial, and they'll teach you how to make a Flappy Bird-like game. It became a kind of model, and then it fizzled. So I think maybe he just jumped the gun on like, I know this is about to fizzle, so I'm going to go out my way, right? Like Frank Sinatra style, and that this is going to go absolutely nowhere. I think that this is a flash in the pan at best. I think that the Flappy Bird Foundation is taking advantage of like a moment and trying to get the attention of the media, and then it's not going to work and nobody's going to download it and nobody's going to care. Maybe they'll do more with it, but I'm not optimistic.
I think it's really interesting that you have the Stan group, and it's very much that they are fans of the game, but they do not care about the creator of it. Especially since, like, you could not make your stance any clearer on crypto and, like, selling the rights. And he's just like, yeah, no, like, that's not a thing. Like, nope. And they're like, well, too bad. We're doing it anyway. We're rolling ahead with this. And it's like, if you cared about the game that much, you would create your own version of it instead of rebooting the original one without taking into consideration anything from the creator of it.
Yeah, and it's possible.
I think the only reason it didn't take over more of my life in general is because I was really bad at it. There's actually one mobile game that I'm playing that has a Flappy Bird-like level in it that I genuinely can't get past it. And it's supposed to be easy.
Well, and the thing is that it's really not a very like good game. It's not a interesting thing. It is a intentionally like obtuse and challenging thing that is supposed to, like I said, it's an arcade game. It's the whole point of the game is to try and get you to lose so that the next person in line plays. Like that's what it felt like to me from the beginning. And so that's why I don't think there's a life for it. I looked at some of what they were trying to do in the announcement, and like it looks like they're trying to make it like a Hall of Fame type game where they're like all of these different skins and styles and things that you can do. And it's just not going to work. And especially what in the world is going to take them until 2025? Like I just said, I can go do a Godot tutorial right now and I could have a Flappy Bird tomorrow. Like, what do you mean 2025? What are you talking about 2025? Like, go ahead and release it if you got it. I don't know. The whole thing is so weird, and I think that IGN is silly for even having covered it. They were the only ones that I really saw really running with it, and then kind of all the other news sources picked it up from there. But this just feels like such a non-starter, like they just want attention, and so they got their attention, and it's not going to go anywhere. I just think, yeah.
Look at me, over here. I'm over here, guys. Over here. I'm not doing anything, but I'm over here.
Exactly. So I'm not particularly compelled to say we'll hear any more about the Flappy Bird reboot or revival. I think this will probably be the end of it. It won't work, and hopefully the dev doesn't have to step in any more than they already have, and they can just kind of stay quiet on the thing and not deal. Nostalgia bait is a great word, and I think that's probably what we're seeing here. Next up, we have got some news from Pocket Pair, the developer of Palworld. They have confirmed that the survival crafting game will not be shifting to a free-to-play model, despite earlier comments from CEO Takuro Mizobi suggesting the idea was under consideration. The studio clarified that these statements were made months ago when various options were being explored, but they've since decided to keep Palworld as a pay-up-front game. Pocket Bear emphasized that the free-to-play or live service approach does not align with the game's design or the player preferences. While the studio is open to adding live service elements like skins and additional content in the future, they assured fans that any changes will be discussed with the community. Pocket Bear expressed gratitude for the support and apologized for any confusion the previous comments may have caused. I will say that I'm amazed that Palworld has lasted as long as it has. I enjoyed Palworld. I thought it was a great game. I loved the survival elements. I'm a big Pokemon fan, and so I obviously was in it to win it for that. Like, I enjoyed the actual like monster catching side of it. I enjoy a good survival game. I thought it was a good call making it pay up front as well. But the fact that it has outlasted all of the games that came out right then and were like all over, like, I think it is. I've heard more about Palworld than I have about, what's the bug game? I can't even think of it. Helldivers. Like, I've heard more about Palworld than Helldivers, and I think Helldivers is a much better game. Maybe that's my opinion, I guess, but I think it's a more thought out game, a more fleshed out community, whereas this one still feels very early access. And it just amazes me that this has continued to be so relevant and so pervasive, and it's seemingly like really cared about by the community and by the team making it.
How they were able to continue going with basically being Pokemon with guns, and everybody knows it's Pokemon with guns, and Nintendo being as litigious as they are, and they were able to like keep rolling still.
Mm-hmm. Well, the nature of it being the survival like kept it so different and kept it so differentiated and allowed for it to be what it needed to be. But I think that like this shows that you don't have to agree with everything that Pocket Bear is doing. You don't have to agree with like model or the cloning aspect, or like if you think that it feels too Pokemon, not enough Pokemon, whatever. Like, the reality is that they actually like sat there, considered making it a live service game, and chose not to. Whereas like, you know, Sony is every little thing they can make a live service, they want to make a live service. So to me, this screams like fledgling game developers that still care about their players. And I love that. And that makes me so happy.
I love how there's a focus on the community, and even just like in that IGN article, there's a poll in that's like, do you agree with this? And it's 75% of over 300 voters were like, yeah, no, like, don't make it free to play.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want this.
It's so clear.
I'm just like, okay, that is clear. And it's not often you get something as clear as that from communities.
Yes. Yeah, a community that knows what they want and developers that are willing to give it to them without budging. And I remember whenever Pocket Bear was like saying that Sony was offering to buy them, and they were like, yeah, we don't want that. Like, we don't want to go work for the C-suite. We don't want to make a multi-million-dollar game. Like, we want to do what we're doing. And they're just enjoying themselves.
We want to have more control over our game and our product, so that it still stays with what we intended it to be in the first place.
Yep.
And just not what shareholders want.
The decisions that they've made and the clarity that they've had for this particular thing is really impressive. And I know that they got in some hot water because the CEO is not anti-AI. But even with that, like, I recall that they've been very clear about like, yeah, we're not using AI for Palworld. Like, we have a game that's like called, hey, this game is made with AI, and that's the game they use AI for. And then this one is like, nah, we don't really use AI for this. Like, this is another thing. And so even though they're cool with it, they know that people wouldn't be cool with AI in this experience. And so they're so like, I don't know, transparent is a word I'm wanting to use. And I think that's really refreshing.
You took it right out of my mouth.
Yeah. Very refreshing, and I appreciate it. And, you know, maybe that's the reason they've lasted as long as they have when compared to all the others. And I'll take that. All right. With that, we are going to go into our next segment of the show. As always, do let us know if you have any thoughts on any of these pieces of news, if there's anything that you find interesting or compelling about them, or if you've heard about anything this week. This is what we decided to cover today. But now we're going to get into everybody's favorite segment of the show that hasn't been here for 2 weeks, but has finally returned. Welcome back to Cryptic Critiques. It's time for everybody's favorite game, Cryptic Critiques. This is the game show of bad reviews for beloved games. I have scoured the internet to find 3 of the funniest bad reviews I could for popular games, and I will deliver them one at a time to our special guest of the week, who this time happens to be T-Bone. So play along with us. See if you can figure it out before we get to clue number 3. But if you are watching live, remember, do not send in your guesses until the guest has been given a chance to give her final choice at the end of the third prompt. So with that, Trombone, are you prepared? Are you ready for
something
this?
I might actually know?
Yes, I think.
Okay.
You should. I'm pretty sure.
You think? Oh, great. I'm doomed, y'all. I'm doomed from the start.
Well, yes, I do think you know this, and we're going to get into our prompts. So are you ready for your first clue?
Not necessarily, but I don't think I'm going to get any more ready, so go for it.
I believe in you. All right, the first one. I'd post a review, but it costs $40 to unlock it.
All I can think of is I'm like, did Dreamlight Valley end up being $40 when they said they were no longer going to be free to play?
Could be going down that road. It definitely seems like something connected to the price tag and locking things behind a price tag. So that's pretty good. That'd be a good reference. Are you ready for the second clue?
Sure.
All right, number 2, League, but it's harder to get angry because your teammates probably haven't developed object permanence yet.
Is this Fortnite?
Fortnite's a great guess, a great direction to take it in. You got those kids playing games. Yep. All right. So we'll see if
Like,
that
I'm thinking
changes.
like Fortnite, Roblox, like.
Yeah. You're down the right direction there with something that is lockable, that is behind money, that's behind that paywall, and then played by kids. Let's go into the third one, see if that changes it at all. The best part of this game is the blank. So I don't even know how you people play League. We got 2 references to League.
You have references to League. So I'm like, all right, what other games are League like? And I'm like, well, like World of Warcraft is usually looped in with that. But then there's always like the Clash of Clans and like
I will say that I know for a fact that you've played this game. I will even tell you a hint is that we have played this game. You and I have played this game together. That's a pretty big hint.
was this what the other one? Was this Stardew? No, we didn't play that. Well, kinda, because you showed me where Robin's Axe was. We have played it.
I've played
we
this game.
Haven't played games together in so long, Nate.
I've played this game with Cam. I've played this game with Perry. Let's see. Who else have I played this game with? Mr. Taco Dudes.
Is this a Discord game?
No.
Like,
it is a game we streamed many, many hours of years ago.
all I can think of is Pokemon Unite, but I don't know where the $40 is coming from.
That is because Pokemon Unite was full of microtransactions. So in order for you to unlock anything, you got to pay up that money. So you got it. It is indeed
oh my
Pokemon
goodness.
Unite.
So like with the very first one, my first thought was like, oh, Pokemon Unite. And then I'm like, no, that can't be it. Cause like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, Pokemon Unite indeed. Chats in the clap. You got it. Yep, that MOBA feel. I knew this was a game that you had played, and so that was why I had an hour and had to pull this one out of my hat.
I got deep into Unite for a bit. Like, I would play it at work. One of my coworkers played it as well. This was when I was working at the car dealership. And so we would, like, arrange to, like, doing things at the same time. Let me tell you, I got really good at tapping with one hand while answering the phone with the other hand and talking to customers. Because they just wanted to be transferred to service anyway, so it wasn't that big a deal.
Yeah, there were a whole lot of references in the reviews that were like, this game is for babies. This is a baby game for babies. It's so easy to play. And that was my favorite part. I loved how easy it was to play. I loved that you didn't have to put too much thought into it.
And now it's just...
yeah.
too much.
Yeah. Well, it always really was. If you got a bad, if you got a bad crew, you were in for a bad time. And it was just the way it works. The best team you could get would mean that you'd either be winning all that night or you'd be really losing.
Yeah.
And then there were just
But like for a while there, like it was balanced, and then it was just sweaty. it was just sweaty or sweaty. And it's like, y'all need some deodorant because this is not okay.
Well, it was a good time while it lasted. I've always thought about going back and playing more of it because I do miss it. But I think what I really
But
miss
every
is
time
that
I've
time
gone back,
when it
it's
started.
been bad.
Yeah. I
And I
miss
think
what
that's
it
because
started
I
with.
haven't continued with progressing and leveling up.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Well, good. Well, that is our Cryptic Critiques, everybody's favorite game show. You got it. You nailed it. You got it in the end there. I didn't even know that you had it there, so that's great. I did already kind of flash through I accidentally mixed up the notes for whatever reason. But we're going to be doing a new main topic segment that maybe will be a recurring thing. We'll see if I'm able to come up with more of these examples, but it's called Christians Can, actually. We've had a bit of a discussion over on the Discord, and I've had this discussion for years, really, especially whenever it comes to, can Christians watch anime? Can Christians play this game? Can Christians play that game? And so we've had a little bit of a discussion about mature games or even games that are arguably over on our Discord server recently. And the game that always comes up is Cult of the Lamb. It's the one that always seems to rear its ugly head whenever we start to talk about what games Christians can and cannot play. And so I thought this would be a fun little segment, would be to say, hey, Christians can play this game, actually. And so I've picked 10 games kind of out of a hat that I've heard people say that Christians cannot play. And I'm going to give reasons why, in my opinion, I think we can play them and maybe even should. Some of these games I'm going to say we should be playing because I think they have really good themes that are important for us to consider as Christians. And just because games are mature doesn't necessarily mean that they should not be considered at all. And there are a lot of scriptures that we could get into, but that's not what this is about. That's another time, another video. This one is just kind of laying out some of the reasons why these games...
to research and put it together.
Right. These could be beneficial if that's the scripture that you want to point to. Is it used for good? These games, I believe, could be used for good. And I am going to give a quick caveat and say, hey, big letters, this is not parenting advice. If you are thinking that right now what I'm saying is, yes, you should let your 10-year-old play this game because it actually is a Christian game, that's not what I am saying. This is about adults talking about games. This is about us talking about mature games, and you are of age to play them. So don't consider this as parenting advice. This is not me telling you you should be letting your kid play this game. I may have those thoughts, but I would never put them out on official print. So that is not what I am saying here.
Only an unofficial network.
Only in lunch chats or things like that will you hear me saying such slander. But we're going to look at the 10 games that I think are good for this list. And T-Bone, you just kind of weigh in where you feel like weighing in. Things that make sense, don't make sense. I put some questions in there, but if you think of things, then, let me know. The first one makes sense because of the fact that I just brought it up. Cult of the Lamb. Cult of the Lamb is the one that people always throw under the bus as being satanic, but I think that these are people that have never actually played the game. They were too scared of the game, too scared of the themes and the things that it was seemingly about. But the reality is that this game is actually about overturning the cult. Like, spoiler alert, I suppose, but in order for you to actually find out about these things, you have to actually play them and learn that this game is not about making a cult. It can be. You can choose the bad route, the bad end if you want to, but the true motif of this experience is you are learning that you are being manipulated and you are not going down the right path, and that you can actually make your community into something that can overthrow and overturn the cultic satanic elements. So yes, I think that this is a nuanced game. I think that it does have some dark imagery. I think if you're uncomfortable with even satanic images in something, like if you see a Megadeth shirt and it makes you uncomfortable, this is probably not for you. But the actual story being told, it's told with a tongue-in-cheek style. And the story that it's telling is an important one that I was worthy of making a nerdy sermon about, that got us in all the trouble to begin with about this. But I think that satire, and I think that role-playing in an environment that is obviously dangerous IRL in a safe fictional environment can be a beneficial thing for us to do. What do you think about that, D-Bone?
Well, thanks for taking half the things that I was going to say, Nate.
No!
I was like, oh yeah, this is the one that I feel like most confident on talking about. And Nate's like, I'm gonna say all the things about it.
It's almost like
But
this
I
is
think
what I
that
think about all the time.
yeah, almost like that. But I think that the humor of it is what allows it to be approachable. Because cults in and of themselves are dangerous. And that is something that this game explores as well. And part of the reason that they're so dangerous is that blind obedience within it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I like how within the cult, things don't always go well. As in addition to that. And so it's like, oh hey, suddenly like you did not gather enough food for your followers, and that is bad. But then it's also like, oh, your followers are starting to lose faith. Like, guess we need to beat them upside over the head with the message that we're trying to get through about whatever our cult is about, so that way they can return to that blind obedience and be easier to manipulate. And so I think that definitely plays a huge role into it along with the satirical elements. I think it's really easy to see like cult and be like, well, cult equals bad. That means I can't touch this. But what we're actually doing is we are losing that opportunity for a further conversation about it. And I think that's what you'll find me saying for a lot of these things as we continue going through with them.
Yes, absolutely. And that leads directly into our next one, which is Final Fantasy, which is one that a lot of people throw out with the bathwater. They think that they are just games that are about summoning things, or they're games that are just dark fantasy or any of those sort of, even the concept of fantasy sometimes is enough for people to say that this is not for them. But I think the series is fantastic and tells some really deep and rich stories and is totally worth the time of anybody that wants to play them, with particular attention for me and for Gobi Church, or whatever username they might be going by at the time. Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy X, is one that literally you are fighting sin. That is like the main theme. And even though you are fighting against religion in a lot of these games, and very often you're fighting against God, you are not fighting against the Christian God. You are often fighting against a corrupted God, or a corrupting God, even worse. It can be a God figure that is doing bad. And so these are, again, an opportunity for us to role play in literal battles against godlike evil with power that we get in the game. And so these are really rich stories in which we are able to fight back and feel powerful against things that in real life we may not feel powerful with at all.
So I want to first off mention that I am still kind of new to the Final Fantasy enterprise, but I have greatly enjoyed everything that I have played or consumed within it. And I found that redemption, that like in a character arc, is a key role in it, and especially that everything and everyone isn't always exactly what they seem when you look at them, and very much the don't judge a book by its cover. You can't judge a person by their eyes and be like, well, this was your backstory, so like everything about you must immediately connect to that, and it's always bad. And it's like, not actually. There's a lot more that goes into this as well, and that corruption isn't just something that happens overnight as well. It's systematic, and it happens over time, and it happens in ways without us realizing it as well. And so I think that's definitely something. And there's a lot of, even though it is a fantasy world that it takes place in, there's still a lot of things that can be similar to our own struggles that we have in life at times. And that's something that I've commented on as I've gone through playing either some of 9 or some of OG7.
Yeah, absolutely. They can be very real and very resonant. And so I think that that's good stuff. Another one of the popular ones to throw under the bus is Pokemon. This is mainly due to like one guy that one time said that Pokemon are demons. But alas, I think that if we take that one guy's credit and kind of run with this one. They have nothing to do with demons. Pokemon are not demons. If anything, I think that this came out of a fear of evolution there for a little while, which is not something we need to be scared of either as Christians. We don't need to be scared of science or scared of any of those things that we've been told that we are supposed to be afraid of. But I'm going to say that this is an important game for another reason. They're fun. And they are fun for a lot of people. And a lot of people really love these games. They're very important to folks. And I think a case in point is we all remember Pokemon Go. Like, this was a phenomenon that united the world. Quite literally united the world. And so I think that we probably missed an opportunity. I remember there were some churches that did take advantage of this and offered water at stations when they learned that they were gyms or fill in the blank. But it would be foolish of us to notice that this is something that is beloved by so many people and to ignore the opportunity to tap in to that field, into that arena. I think that that is a big reason why Checkpoint is what Checkpoint is, not for Pokemon necessarily, but because we saw that video games and nerddom were something that the church was ignoring, but it's a huge group of people. It is a huge culture that needs to be reached into and loved and offered God and offered Jesus and offered community and offered church and the experience. So Pokemon Go is the sign. Granted, it's fallen off of favor a bit now, but it was such a phenomenon. It shows the power of letting a huge community be reached by the church.
And I think not only does it show the power of that community gathering together, but the irony of it being that people always gamers need to go out and touch grass. And sometimes, yes, we do. Occasionally. But most of the time, chill. But this is something that actually got people outside and moving around and interacting with each other. I played it for a while. I actually thought the other day, I'm like, do I want to jump back into this or not, since I'm walking outside more? And then I'm like, I don't want to be sad by the limited number of Pokestops and gyms that are located on this island where I walk. But I know of at least one church that actually tried to get their gym removed because they were like, we don't want this. And then my dad's a pastor, and he actually created a sign with a Pikachu on it, and it said, Jesus loves you, and put it next to the Pokies and had that there, which was both cringe and a cool outreach at the same time. It's interesting how that can overlap in the Venn diagram. But also there are different community groups, our young adult ministry for the conference decided hey, there's community day that's happening, literally called community day. Let's meet up and go to it together, and we would have conversations there. Or it was one of the few times that you would roll up next to a Pokestop, or a gym, and you'd be battling at the gym, and then you see it change its colors, and then you look over and you see another person, you're like, are you the one? What color are you? What team are you? And so it fostered connections and conversations as well within that. And I think that some churches, like you said, did capitalize on it well. And I think it would be a good thing to reflect back on and be like, hey, we actually started to do a decent job at reaching those geeks and gamers during this without demonizing them and what they love and enjoy and brings them joy. How can we do more of this as we continue on with other things?
Absolutely agree with all of that. Speaking of unapologetic cringe, my next choice is Danganronpa, which is a selfish choice. This is pure vanity.
As soon as you said this series name, I was like, this better be on here.
Yeah, it's the I don't think I've ever actually heard anybody say that this series is demonic, but it's unquestionably a killing game, and that feels like it's not conducive with Christianity. Logic would dictate this is not a Christian experience.
I think it would be a pretty good argument to say that a certain character on there may or may not be demonic.
Exactly. And the whole series, goes that way. But I will say that Danganronpa is important because, quite literally, the point of the game is ultimate despair going up against ultimate hope. And that, in and of itself, is the gospel. That is the experience of which we are, sharing. And so I think that this one will be short, sweet, and to the point. I don't have more to say about this one than anything else, but this is a game that does tell an important story, and that is worth noting. And again, vanity upon vanities, I will share it because I love it.
I think it was also, we had a conversation about this during Mana and Mingle, not this week, but the week before, I think. And we were talking about Danganronpa right before we went into communion. And we joked about the irony of that. And then you basically said exactly what you said earlier. And I wish that I had written down that exact quote of that moment. Because I was like, this is a perfect summary of, you were like, going from despair to hope, I did the meeting of communion, so like, let's lead right into this. And I was like, that's valid. And I really like that.
I can't help myself, and it is what it is. Another game that I will say that I don't know if I've necessarily heard people rag on this one too much, but I can imagine the darker themes of The Last of Us have raised some eyebrows. I think people are uncomfortable with zombies, even though these aren't zombies necessarily in this game. It is something that I think causes us to have some discomfort. But I think that The Last of Us is an important story for Christians to play, especially if they have been told not to play this one, because I think that The Last of Us is an absolute masterclass in bad people. Like, this is a story of people that are likable and not good. And that is so crucial to the human condition and to how we experience real life, which is probably the most Calvinist you'll ever hear me, because I, am typically much more Wesleyan in my portrayal of the human condition and in the goodness of humanity. But it's important every now and again to experience a character that is true to life, and the people that we experience that are truly selfish, and that's okay, and that we can still like them in the midst of that, and even empathize with them, which is a great word. But I think that this is one that more Christians could and should play, just to consider those ramifications.
I think it's really important to mention that just because someone is good at times doesn't mean that they can't also make some questionable decisions, especially when they're faced with questionable options to begin with. And I think it's a really good reminder that you can be trying to do the best you can for a certain reason, and that can be a good reason overall, but that doesn't necessarily justify all of the actions that take place throughout it, but that doesn't take away the good things that were done as well. And so if only good people that were completely good and perfect and didn't make mistakes and didn't have questionable decisions were allowed to be role models, then we wouldn't really have many people to pick from. And I think it's important to mention the faults that somebody has when we have them as our role model and be like, yeah, like these are things that are really good about them, but also acknowledging like these aren't the best. Now, like at the same time, do not take anything of what I have said to try and redeem Nazis, because I did not say any of that.
Right. Well, I think there's a you're wearing the Do Good shirt, which is a wonderful shirt made by some of the friends of Checkpoint, but that it does give an important thought process of we say do good, do no harm, and then our third is strive to grow, but the Wesley one is attend upon the ordinances of God, and it's all three. I think you could make an argument for the characters of The Last of Us that they do good, but they don't do no harm. They are not pursuing ways to do no harm. They are doing good for someone, but they're harming others, and that should be a consideration and something for us to think through. So valuable insight, valuable stuff for us to consider. Another one this one is probably the one I will say I was the most tentative to put on the list, because it is, I would argue, the one that most Christians should not play out of all of the games that I have mentioned so far, and it is Omori. Mori is a fascinating game that I don't want to spoil too much of the actual story of. It is an exceptional game, in my opinion, although some people are not quite as keen on it. But it is a fascinating deep dive into mental health and coping mechanisms and really bad decisions and choices and all sorts of things that go on. It's a very dark game, a very dark and visceral experience. But I was reminded of the fascination that I have with this game recently with a video that went viral on YouTube of a dad who played through this game for the first time after his child died by suicide. And the game that she had played right before that happened was Omori. And so he wound up playing this game as a kind of coping mechanism for himself to work through this thing. And I implore you to watch this video if it is something that you feel comfortable watching. Obviously, know the content warnings and trigger warnings and all that good stuff. But the journey that this guy goes through as he is really experiencing something that is all too familiar of the story being told by Omori, it's really otherworldly. And so I think that this is a fascinating telltale instance of like games mirroring life and the darkness of life. And so I think if you're somebody like this is the Great Divorce level, C.S. Lewis level of like, if you want to talk about the harsh reality of life, sometimes you got to look it in the face. Like sometimes you got to stare into the abyss, right? And this is a stare into the abyss game. And that's necessary every now and again to really look the ugliness of life and mental health in the face as a means of better understanding people that deal with that or dealing with it ourselves if we're there.
I was a little concerned, not gonna lie, when you first said that this was something that I'm not sure if like most Christians or like people in general should actually play this, even though it is a fantastic game. Because I actually kind of disagree with that. I think that we need to have a lot of people don't understand mental health and they don't understand what it's like to truly be depressed, the different levels that exist within it and how deep it goes. And when you are suicidal, the hopelessness that excuse me, you feel even as life keeps going on around you. And I think that's something that's really difficult for a lot of people to understand unless you've been through that yourself. And even if you have been through that yourself, it's different for every single person, the way that they go through it and the way that they process it. And so I actually think that if you are in a place that you can mentally handle and process this game and you have support systems in place in order to do that, whether it be therapy as well as having other support systems and supported people with you to talk about it with, that it would be a good thing to do. If nothing else, then to continue the conversation about it. And also, if you are someone and you see yourself reflected in those stories, then that might also be a wake up call for you to be like, hey, maybe I need to talk to somebody about this because maybe there is more to life than this. And I didn't realize that because this has become my normal for so long. And so I think it opens up a lot of gateway points to that. Just for anybody who doesn't know, I have depression myself. I have been suicidal and I have spent time in a psych ward because of having so much suicidal ideation. And it's something that I'm still working and processing through. And I think that a lot of the reasons that make it an additional level of difficulty to deal with and process is the amount of stigma that surrounds it and the lack of understanding, even from people who have a good heart and they're trying their best and they have good intentions, but they really don't understand. And one of the most important things you can do is just walk with someone on that journey and to let them know that they matter and you're there for them and to listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I do think that it just comes with the necessary triggers and trigger warnings and being fully aware of what the game is and what it will bring you through. And again, kind of like The Last of Us, realizing that like there are darker sides of characters and that these characters are not all good people. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a good or bad thing. It can just be a thing that happens. So yeah. Another completely different one. This is one that I do often hear get thrown under the bus by Christians, and this is Doom. Doom is a series that's been around for a long time in the video game world, obviously. And since it was something that has been around for so long, it has survived a lot of the debates about, violence and gore in games. And there's no doubt that this is a violent and gory game. And again, this is not a question of should you let your children play this game, right? This is should you play this game? The big thing about Doom to remember is that you are defeating Hellspawn. And so even if you want to take this as literally as you possibly can, like you are conquering hell by all means. Like the original 2 Doom games, spoiler alert for a pretty old game at this point, the second Doom game ends with you. The second Doom game literally ends with you defeating hell. You defeat Baphomet or whatever, and like hell is conquered and defeated, and that's the ending of Doom 2 before they do the reboot with Doom 3. So like, I mean, Doom Guy's kind of a Christ figure in a way, and is kind of a conquering figure in a way, and does have kind of the White Knight style of Jesus, which not everybody is fond of in particular, or is even accurate to a biblical representation. But nonetheless, the conquering of evil, the conquering of death, is something that is fascinating, and it can be a visceral way of doing that. So of all of the games in which you are going to be violent, I think being violent against Hellspawn is probably the best possible scenario.
I actually have never played Doom myself, and every time I have seen playthroughs of Doom, it has been people working on specific levels of it, and I genuinely thought that they were playing Quake. So I feel like I should not say much on this topic.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's just such a funny thing to even consider that people have such a problem with it in particular. Like Mortal Kombat, I get, like it's mortals combating, right? But this is like you're beating demons. It's all right. This next one is one that surprises me even, but I really wanted to throw some kind of game on here because one of the big pushbacks that I often hear has to do with lewdness in video games and inappropriate sexual content and that kind of thing. And so I wanted to come up with some kind of game that offered some sort of alternative for a game that seems that way, but does offer depth. And so the game that I came up with is Catherine, which is a game that I put off for years and years, thinking that it was nothing more than that. It was just kind of a surface level, shock jock, Leisure Suit Larry-esque experience that was not going to be worth anything. No, this is a fantastic game that brings up adult themes and handles them in a playful yet very serious way. This is a game that is about, cheating and is about the loyalty in romantic relationships and how we feel guilt around them, how we feel guilt around seriousness of growing up. This is a real coming of age story as far as the main character Vincent trying to figure out what it means to be an adult and in an adult relationship. And so this game surprised me, and I should have given it more credit because it's an Atlas game, which is the people that made Persona. And so I should have known this was not some, middle-aged dudes just designing a game that they thought would get attention because of the content. But instead, this is a game that offers a lot of value and a lot of critical thinking and is worth playing. Even if there is explicit nature stuff, it is not sexual themes for the sake of fan service. It is sexual themes for the sake of having adult conversations around them. And I just think that is so rare, and I wish we had more of this kind of game, because I think that is something we need to have more conversations of because of the awkwardness of even the word. This offers the opportunity for genuine conversation in and through that.
I did not know this game existed, to be perfectly honest, until Nate put it on the list, because I haven't really dived past the mainstay of games that most people talk about and play unless Nate or somebody in Checkpoint really has mentioned it to me and been like, hey, you should check this out. But I definitely think that we as the church need to have more conversations on relationships and the reminder that dating and marriage is a relationship, but friendship is also a relationship, and all of them are serious and none of them are easy, and that there's a lot of messy things that happens within all of them. and ignoring that and just saying that if you're dealing with anything messy, then you did something wrong. And where oftentimes it's not necessarily that someone did something quote unquote wrong, even though sometimes it is, the actual underlying all of that is not always as simple as that. And I think that that kind of explores that and that uncomfortable topic is really good. And I think that should remind us as the church that we need to be willing to have these uncomfortable conversations and topics because they exist. And our children and us as adults are going to experience it in the real world, whether it is ourselves that is experiencing it or one of our friends is experiencing it. And in order to be there for them and to have some idea of how to process it, or even to expect that something might happen, or have conversations ahead of time to try and avoid it happening if at all possible, then you need to have knowledge about something and to have that uncomfortable conversation first.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic point. And like I said, we just need more. This is something that games don't broach often, and I think that it's a good theme for us to explore. And like I said, it is much less about intimacy and much more about fear of just growing up and being responsible. And that's important. Next up is another one that I often hear because it has the word God in it and is all about defeating gods. And this is God of War. God of War is a series that obviously does a lot of things. An older series, I will say the original God of War, I certainly don't know quite as well as the new iterations, which I think are very, very good games and tell very, very good stories of a similar kind of coming of age for a second coming of age for somebody that is now learning to be a father. But I do think that there's an important point also to this one of like acknowledging again that there are bad gods and that there are mythological figures that have like done humans wrong and that do not have humanity's best interest at heart. And so we have the opportunity to take these characters and compare them, not dissimilar from our recent nerdy sermon on Black Myth Wukong, right? Which we explore the possibility of gods doing the wrong thing and treating humanity bad. And then acknowledging also, spoiler alert for anybody that's ever read the Old Testament past the very beginning bits, there are other gods in the Old Testament, and Yahweh is the conqueror of them. Yahweh is stronger. And so it's not like there is only one God in the Bible. There are many gods, but our God, Yahweh, is the one that wins, is the one that does love humanity and is the creator and is the one that oversees and does more and is the one that we obviously adhere to. And so that's an important reality for us to also realize is like there are in our lore, right? There are in our understanding of our great myth in the Old Testament that there are other gods that are not good, whereas our God is the good God. And so that's an important reminder for us to also consider of like we were at one point in conflict with gods that did not have our best interest at heart.
I think that also your perspective changes that as well. If you were expecting your God to possibly not have the best interest in you and knowing that your God just has the best interest of themselves and not the overall, then you're going to think about them in a different way than you are about the one who's going to show up and walk with you on the journey and be like, yeah, things are rough right now, but I'm still here and I'm walking with you through this because I'm not leaving you through this. And so I think that the perspective of it as well is something important to consider. And like you said, it opens up the door for conversations about unpacking some of those complex theological concepts, whether intended or not. Theology is not easy to understand. And, there's a lot of theologians that don't agree exactly on how everything went down, exact interpretations of it, but there are overall agreements about some major points. And a lot of that is that God is love. And that is something that is vastly different than a lot of the mythological gods.
Yes. And so anytime we get an instance of a God that is not love, that provides another opportunity for us to more build up our comprehension of the God, the true God, the one true God that we do worship. So that's an important thing for us to do. It only makes our relationship deeper by exploring alternatives that are not as good. Last but not least, the final one is another Atlas pick. This is one that I found every now and again is Persona, in particular because of the fact that we are often summoning shadow creatures. There were a lot of these that sort of did the same thing, whether it was Persona or whether it was something very similar to it. People are uncomfortable with summoning. They consider it to be witchcraft, which is sort of why I picked this one, because that sort of goes down this route. But Persona in and of itself is a totally different experience. And it shows that it is not about the actual like summoning. It is not about any of that. Instead, it's all an allegory for we are. And this is an extension of ourselves. This is an extension of our power. And so the shadow creatures that they do summon, the persona that they do embody, end up being more about the actual user, end up being more about the person, and is a story of overcoming adversity, not only through better understanding your own strength, but through understanding the strength that happens when you unite with others, which is an important message for the church, for us to understand ourselves and how we are able to embody our strengths to stand up against adversity, and also within the community that we call the body of Christ. So important stuff on all fronts there that I thought were worth mentioning.
We're not doing this alone. We weren't designed to do it alone. When we try to do it alone, that's when we get in trouble.
Yep. And this is one that does it well. One that does it very, very well. So yeah, there we go. We went through 10 games, 10 instances of games that are somewhat panned by the church that are worthy of another look. And so I will encourage for further reading. If you've never watched our Can Christians Watch Anime video over on our YouTube channel, that's always a great starting point to understand more of my arguments theologically of why we should be watching anime and playing games and wrestling with these things. And of course, the final point falls down in the pit of nuance being the ultimate thing. So all that's important for us to remember. Do remember that mature, thoughtful engagement with stories, discernment, those things are important, and that we shouldn't just throw things out with the bathwater just because we are a little bit uncomfy with some of the themes or the stories, or even worse, because we've heard that we shouldn't even experience it from somebody. If you trust somebody's opinion, then that's another story, I suppose, but I would still say experience something for yourself and see how that creative work might speak to you first and foremost. Okay. That wraps up this segment and it brings us into our next one, which is, of course, my favorite segment of the show. No. Yeah.
At this point in nerd history.
That's right. It is time for At This Point in Nerd History, everything that was released on this exact day, which is September 17th throughout time and space. We'll go through some games and some TV shows and movies, and then some random factoids in there as well. Some games that were released on this day. In 2021, we had Toem, which is a picture-taking game. It's very fun. And then Deltarune Chapter 2 was released, which also happened to release Chapter 1 as a package deal. In 2019, The Somnium Files was released. For those of you that know my love of Uchikoshi, know that I had to put that one in there. 2013, believe it or not, is when GTA 5 originally launched. 2004, Mario Golf Advanced Tour was released in Europe for the GBA, one of my favorite Mario Golf games. And then in 2004, the only reason I put this one is because me and my friend used to leave this one on the PS2 because I loved the little intro thing. And so I remember falling asleep to Resident Evil Outbreak. Take it away with some TV.
You know, that's what people normally fall asleep to.
That's
so
it.
I'm very excited about this first one because I have seen every season of it, every single episode, and I even got to watch the documentaries and different things about it, and I've loved every part of it. Ash premiered on CBS TV in 1972. Mission Impossible premiered and also on CBS TV in 1966. In 1965, Hogan's Hero debuted on CBS TV. 1964, Bewitched premiered on ABC TV. And then For movies, in 2010, Easy A was released.
Very nice. Yeah, I wanted to list those TVs because I thought that was such an interesting, like, quad of very famous TV shows that all happened to premiere on the exact same day. So I guess September 17th was just like the day that new shows premiered in the 60s and 70s. I don't know if that's a thing, but must have been. And then some random facts: the Nintendo Insider Forums, which was essentially Nintendo's magazine online, closed down in 2007, and in 2002, the e-reader was launched in North America. So that should be fun for us to look at that. I never actually had an e-reader. Do let us know if there are any things that you found interesting about this one, or if you had any, at this point in history, moments that came out today that you just happen to know about. But otherwise, we're going to get into our next segment of the show. It is time for upcoming releases. We're going to go through 3 things that we are each excited about that are coming out in the next week, give or take. And I will go first here. Agatha All Along is going to be premiering. In Agatha All Along, the infamous Agatha Harkness finds herself down and out of power after a suspicious goth teen helped break her free from a distorted spell. Her interest is piqued when he begs her to take him on the legendary witch's road, a magical gauntlet of trials that, if survived, rewards a witch with what they are missing. Together, Agatha and this mysterious teen pull together in a desperate coven and set off down the road. This is a show that I believe Christians can watch, even though it's about witches. So there you go. That goes with our theme for today. T-Bone, what's your first one?
Okay, so I'm coming here with the board game community for you for both of mine. As of today, finally, the Trash Stack Kickstarter went live. I have been waiting months to like close to a year for this. I have played this game multiple times. I have played it so many times that the designer of this game was on a bathroom break at a convention. And there was a group of people at a table, including Nate and Chris. And I started to explain the game to them with complete accuracy before the designer got back, and he was totally okay with it. Trash Dash is a family-friendly, fast-paced racing game in which 2 to 6 players are adorable little street animals that are competing to be the quickest critter in the city.
They are. I'm very excited. I had no time today to back that Kickstarter, but I will be because I enjoyed it so much and I want to support that creator because I think it's a great game. Very good stuff. My next one is UFO 50. UFO 50 is a collection of 50 brand new single and multiplayer games from the creators of Spelunky, Downwell, Time Barons, Scorpulac, and Madhouse. Jump in and explore a variety of genres from platformers and shoot-'em-ups to puzzle games and RPGs. The team's goal is to combine a familiar 8-bit aesthetic with new ideas and modern game design sensibilities. Also, roughly a third of the collection features local multiplayer, including co-op and versus. You can compete head-to-head in fighting or strategy gameplay to team up, or team up to beat a classic arcade game with an alternate timeline. For those of you that do not know much about Spelunky and the history there, that is Derek Yu, who is a famous game developer, very well known, and this is a fascinating experience that he has put together with his friend, another game dev, that they actually grew up together in elementary school. It's a really great podcast from Simon Parkin, My Perfect Console. I highly recommend listening to that to learn more about this and Derek Yu's story about how this came to be. But this is an 8-year in the process 50 game amalgam made by one of the most prolific game devs out there. And so I am super excited about this. All right, T-Bone, your next one.
All right. So next up, another board game on Kickstarter that I played on a convention. Gems of Iridescence is a worker placement game where players explore an abandoned fantastical world in an effort to mine gems, store ancient relics, and reunite the people of Iridescence. And so it has a bit of a push your luck element. Some of it comes down to like luck in general, but then there's also some strategy that goes into it. And it's been really cool to see even just like some of the changes that were made. And it has a lot of really pretty colors as well within it. And I am a sucker for multicolors.
Love it. My last one is one that I actually only discovered because I was looking for games that are coming out in the next week, and this one seriously got my attention. It's called No Case Should Remain Unsolved. 12 years after Senior Inspector John Young's retirement, she is visited by a young police officer, a woman who pleads with her to re-examine Xiaowan's case. But with each uncovered memory, only one thing becomes clear. Everyone in Xiaowan's vicinity is Lying. I really like good mysteries, and this looks like a good one, and it's also getting some pretty good reviews. It looks like a fun indie, and I don't know. I was super curious about it, and I plan to play this because I love a good mystery, and I'll always love a good indie. All right, your last one.
So, yet again, another board game one. So, Codenames, which is a ridiculously popular game with multiple iterations of it, including actually a Blizzard one that was created as a gift for workers for like one Christmas. Fun fact. But they have created an app. So it does cost a few dollars, but there are no fees past that. I actually was able to be a tester of this app and have been playing it since early release because of the testing that I did for it. And it is a fantastic job. You are able to play solo, or you can play with friends, either online, or you can do pass and play with it. It has lots of different modes in it, as well as like achievements for the dopamine and cool characters to collect. And so it's been a really great time. I am not one who will normally actually pay for an app, and this is one that I am definitely putting down the money for.
Very good. Well, that's exciting and a good one to close it out on. Those are our upcoming releases. Do let us know if there are any games or things that you are excited for, TV shows or movies that you plan on watching in the next week. I would love to hear what is getting you excited. But with that, we are going to get into our final segment of our show, which is, of course, Meme of the Week. That's right, it is our Meme of the Week, and we continue with our Sugar Haiku supremacy of I Can Only Imagine. I'm not even going to make that one larger. You guys get the idea. I Can Only Imagine. Very appropriate, as I did sing Mercy Me this past week at my dad's church whenever I was leading worship. So very hilarious to just keep on doubling down on the Can Only Imagine vibes. But this is Sugar Haiku's meme. It did get the most reactions. If you would like to be considered for memes and goofs, be sure to join our Discord server if you haven't already, and post your favorite memes. Post your stuff that you got throughout the week over on our Memes and Goofs channel. Typically the one that gets the most reactions is the one that I post, and this one got the most by far. Like, it was leaps and bounds beyond everyone else. So people really liked this pun. For whatever reason, it was a good one. And
everyone in this community who is not named Cameron/Shimar Whittle loves puns.
Loves a good pun. So this one won out this week. With that, we are going to get into our final little bit of the show here, our closing notes. I'm going to turn it over to Trombone for your shout out. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me as Trombone Dalek here on Twitch. I will be playing Spyro most recently. As I formerly alluded to, I am not good at it. So be prepared for laughter. I have a community of casual chaos, and I do curse on my streams though, so if that's something you're not interested in, might not be the place for you. Otherwise, I'd love to have you there. You can also follow me on Instagram, also at Trombone Dalek, where I am talking about just a little bit of the different things that I am doing, and I'm trying to keep that active with the different things that I am reading as well. I have a backlog of books to actually post about that I have been reading, because lo and behold, I have not kept up with things due to ADHD in life. But yeah, so Trombone Dalek, you can find me, and I'd love to have you.
Awesome. Very good stuff. Well, folks, thanks for watching. This has been Twig, your weekly, geekly, family-friendly news show delivered live here on twitch.tv/Checkpoint Church each and every week, keeping your family connected to the world of nerdy news. If you watched this far, you likely enjoyed this one. Be sure to give us a 5-star on your podcast app. Click that like button. Recommend the show to all of your favorite nerds out there so we can be discovered by even more. As always, we do appreciate everyone that watches this show, that watches live, that watches our views on YouTube, that clicks that like button, that subscribes to our podcast. All of those things are wonderful, but we also extra appreciate those that support us financially over here on Twitch by subscribing or giving even of the Amazon Prime sub that is just a part of your Amazon Prime subscription if you have it. And so we're going to shout out to those subscribers. Thank you to J.M. Leon 42, Nerd Pastor Nate, DGC 12 1996, The Animal Art, Deacon Shannon LS, Trombone Dalek, Yakim 4752, Mindful Marlena, Buish Gobi Church, Sneaky Pig 633, Sugar Haiku, Wise and Lemur, Jate Lives, Ando Calrissian, Tina Chrissy P, Maybe 30 Bats, Twilight 27, Coyote 42, and Perspective. Thank you all so much. And of course, everyone else that does support the show in your own way, we appreciate you as well. With that, will there be Twig next week? Yes, there should be Twig next week. That is still on board. And so that will be happening then and there. With that, we're going to wrap up with our 3 things that we believe to be true about each and every one of you out there. Whether you believe in God, don't believe in God, go to church, don't go to church, hate God, hate church, no matter what, we believe these 3 things to be true about you. Number 1, that God loves you, like really, really loves you. Number 2, we love you. We want community with you. That's why we do this show. That's why we talk about the things that we do. And number 3, that you, yes, you matter. You are a person of sacred worth. The world is a better place. Why? Because you are in it. Folks, with that, until the next time that I see you, whether it be for this show next week, whether it be over on our Discord for lunch tomorrow, or whether it just be around any of our myriad of spaces, I look forward to seeing you then. Till next time, bye-bye!